looking forward to this time of talking with you. So everything seems good. You're all hooked in, and are you able to watch on your computer screen as well, just to see the PowerPoint that we have or anything like that?
I could. I'm not.
If you want, I mean, you don't necessarily have to. You don't necessarily have to. If you want to just talk through, then everyone else will just kind of watch through. It's just pictures of yourself, and I'm sure you've seen yourself before, many times. So, and the lyrics, some of the words and things like that. Okay, that would be great. Well, how you do that is you'd have to log in to the webinar.
I think I got the information. Okay. Yeah, I'll just log into it real quick.
So why don't you do that, and if you have that, then you can just watch as we go along, and might make it good, especially when we're talking through some of the songs and we've got the lyrics on the screen, and then you can refer to some of them and things like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, let me know when you are connected like that, and then we'll just kind of start right into it. I've got Natasha is helping, and she's directing all the PowerPoint and stuff like that. She's down in Portland. I'm up here in Langley, BC, sitting by a farm in my truck actually, and talking with you. And where are you right now?
I'm in Nashville right now.
Where are you? Yeah, sitting in your home.
In Nashville, my house. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. What's the weather like in Nashville today? Is it sunny or?
It's hot. Hot
cloudy?
and humid.
It's hot, hey? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I guess the season's gonna. Yes. As we're heading into the fall, it's beautiful in Nashville as you head into the fall and you get all those different colors, hey?
Indeed. I can't wait. I'm looking really forward to it. Time to break out all the fall books.
Exactly. So are you all set up? Did you get hooked in and logged in?
I'm still clicking through. My computer had to wake up, but I'm almost there.
Okay.
I'm clicking through to the document I got from Charlene with the instructions on it. And then I will click to log in here. Let's see. Link provided in the email. Okay. Here we go. So I'm at the website now, but it says page not found. Let me try that. Okay. I'm here. So to log in, I have to create like a login, I guess.
Yep. You're on the meeting burner login, right?
Oh, I think so. Enter the meeting. Is that right?
Yep. That's exactly it. Yep. Just go through that. Just put your name in, and then you'll show up there. And other people are waiting. So this is always a routine we go through.
Yeah. I think I'm logged in here.
Okay.
And here I am. Okay.
Okay, now you can see it. Now you can just kind of watch and talk, and we'll just kind of take it on from there.
Okay.
So we can just kind of start. This is I'm Ryan Dahl, and I'm on the call with Audrey. She's just called in, and this is just going to be basically like me and Audrey talking, just like we're chatting on the phone, like good old friends. And a bunch of other people are going to be listening in, and we'll talk about Audrey's music and ministry and the journey that she's been on in the last year in particular with her album Fortunate Fall that just came out in August. And we've been able to feature and promote and make some charts and kind of work with helping get the word around about your music. And I just want to say, Audrey, that, I truly love your heart, your spirit, your music, your voice. Like I am, call me one of your fans. That's why I've been so looking forward to this time as I really have loved your music ever since. I think probably the first time I heard, your voice in one of your songs was the Winter Snow, and maybe many people are like that. That was for me the debut of who is that voice in that song, and that kind of ominence that kind of carried through that song. It was just such a great presence in ministry and all of that came through. And then your albums that came out after that. And so I'm just really excited to hear about the journey that God has had you on that's taking you to this point. I know it's been quite a journey and lots of struggle that you have worked through in order to, really be the person that God's called you to be. And I just want to say I'm really proud of you, Audrey, for, taking a stand on just going for who God's called you to be uniquely and kind of walking through that and being very vulnerable in that process. I really see that as I listen to this album and hear the stories that are behind it and just the heart. Really proud of the walk that you've taken, even though it's been a challenge.
Thank you very much. It's all very, very encouraging. I really appreciate that. Glad to be here to talk through that stuff.
Yeah. So the last time that Audrey and I were together was probably 2 or 3 months ago. She was singing for a music publishers conference that I was actually at. And so it was just a piano up in front of the stage, a little stage with about maybe a couple hundred of us, and created such a presence of worship in that place. And we were having kind of a banquet dinner, and Audrey and I got a chance to sit beside each other at this table of 8 and talk through that whole time. It was very fascinating talking to you. So I really just want to kind of continue that dialogue as we talk today. Why don't you give us a little window of, how the past, I guess since August is when your album has come out. So what's the current sort of ministry season that you're in right now? Have you been traveling around a fair bit and doing some singing and concerts, or what's the season that you're in right now? And then maybe we'll kind of work backwards from there.
Okay, yeah. Well, the record came out about 3 weeks ago. And since then, I have started the fall tour we're doing, where I'm actually headlining this kind of first time doing that, really. I've played plenty of events where I'm headlining, but I haven't ever really done a tour where we've organized everything ourselves. And, we have projection that we're bringing that we've designed and we've had designed and a band, and sort of like we've created an event and a prayer experience, I hope. That's kind of what we're attempting. That's very, very much something we dreamed up, and it's my own thing, and that's something I've never really done before. I've always been either an opening artist or just play the piano or whatever, and I love doing both of those things, but this has been a unique experience for me to sort of travel around and bring it's hard to not use the word show, even though it's a prayer night, but just bring a sort of production, I guess, to people and present it. And it's just been we've only done our first weekend, but that was this past weekend, and we had 4 shows, and they all went so well, and it was so sweet, I guess, just the different kind of dynamics in each city with the prayers and the singing, and it just has been really, really incredible. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, is just like the tour and, doing all the promotion stuff you have to do with the new record and a project. And, but that's kind of the season, for right now.
When I think of you, Audrey, as I really think you're a true artist, and to really allow an artist to flourish, sometimes you just got to let them be themselves. And now you're in that space where you can truly offer that thing that is truly yourself, and I just think that's so great. I want to talk about that so that people can, by the end of this hour, they'll be like, man, now I never really realized that's the burden, the passion, what made Audrey kind of tick. And it's something very unique, and and appreciate that a lot. So let's just kind of go back a little bit. I think one of the things that many of us have heard about your journey in making this album is you discovering what an incredible base of supporters and fans you had when you were moving beyond the traditional, publisher, artist, label supported kind of music industry, and really going out on your own and wondering, can I make it? Can I do this thing that God's calling me to? Is anybody out there going to listen or support, me. So then you went on to the Kickstarter campaign. That was probably quite a step of faith, because I'm just thinking if I went on to Kickstarter, I'd be nervous that I had no friends, right? And no one really wanted to support my thing, and it is a real step of faith. So I want you to tell us a little of that story and how encouraging that was for you to know that people are out there rooting for you to declare the voice that God's given you.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit what happened there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my husband actually suggested that I should do that, and I really was hesitant because I felt strange, number one, about sort of asking for money, even though I knew Kickstarter is not really it's not necessarily like a donation. It's more like a pre-sale that you're sort of people are trusting you enough to pay for the record ahead of time, which I think is just incredible. And I haven't done it for that many people myself, and so I really felt hesitant and kind of tentative about really putting myself out there in that way. And we had set the goal at $40,000, which was intimidating to me because even though that's not a lot of money to make and promote and distribute and, print and design a record, it sounds like a lot, but it actually goes really quickly, even though it was not a lot in the scheme of the recording industry, I guess, the landscape, but even though, I just felt like that was a really big number. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make that much money.
Yeah, for sure.
From fans, and I don't know if I should expect that much, and does that sound like arrogant to put that number up there? It was just kind of like really difficult for me emotionally to get my mind around the whole idea. Yeah. But after I thought about it and prayed about it, I really felt like the beautiful thing about Kickstarter and things like that is you're not so much asking for money as you are offering people a chance to partner with you, and you sort of get to know them on another level, and they get to know you on another level, and so you're kind of taking a next step, I guess, in your relationship with people. And we did, and I got so many amazing messages from people who backed me and corresponded with them over the Kickstarter website about, the way that music that I had put out had either impacted them or someone they knew in such a way that they felt, really excited to back the project. And so we ended up putting it up on March 16th of this year with $40,000 in 30 days. And I went to bed the first night, I think we were 25% funded. And then,
wow.
50 hours in, we had reached our goal of $40,000 already. And I was totally in shock. I just really didn't think that I would go that quickly. I was like, never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that. And then, by the end of the 30 days, we ended up at almost $80,000, which is pretty much double what we had asked for. And we had around 2,200 backers, as you can see on the slide. But I am amazed that group of people was able to put together $79,000 between them. I'm amazed at that. And super grateful, It was a huge deal to me that happened, and we have done our best we've spent all of that money on music and content and fulfilling the rewards that we promised, and we haven't, pocketed a dime of that money. It's been all spent on making things, and I'm so grateful I got the opportunity.
Tell me about
to do it that way.
What were some of the things that you did for your supporters? Because that's always a bit interesting for artists to think of what kind of creative way, as you step up the scale. I know at the lower level you're giving probably some free downloads or free albums, but is there any unique story that has come out of you connecting with some of your supporters and people who are getting behind this album, or maybe you haven't fulfilled them all yet? What are some of the things you're
still
doing
working on it? Yeah. Well, we did all the normal things like T-shirts, and we did a journal with a stamp that we designed that I stamped a bunch of them myself, and we had some help with that. But and then obviously the CD, and we did vinyl, and we did one of my favorite levels it's a limited edition vinyl package, which we're still working on because it takes so long to get vinyls pressed. We're still waiting for them, but we did a package where we did a limited edition of the vinyl that's on a gold vinyl, which is really cool looking, and then it's in like a package that we're designing. It'll come in a special bag with like the logo on the front, and there's going to be stickers and a poster in there and some different kind of just little items that we've put together. And I did one level where people could have I would send them a box of antiques that I pick out myself and buy them. And that one's going to be really fun. I still haven't done those, so for the two of you who ordered it, if you're listening, I am going to do that very soon. But yeah, we just really, I tried to think about, I guess, the people that I know I've met that really love my music and what they would like and what they would enjoy. And I just really kept feeling like they like things that are either hand done or unique in some way from like the typical sort of reward structures I had seen, and I just tried to think of them and sort of do that. And one of the biggest things that we found that people really loved was we did at one level, I think it was $20. If you got the $20 level, you would receive the CD and a download of the CD, but you would also get 3 exclusive songs immediately that one of them ended up being on the album, and I think the other 2 did not, but they were just demos, like work tapes I had done at home, and so we emailed those within 24 hours to the people who paid the $20 pledge. Even if they backed out later, they got to keep the songs.
Yeah.
And that was a big one. I think that was the biggest level for us. Like we had the most people take that, and it was really neat to just like send some new music out. And because I wasn't on a label at the time, still not, but I could do that. I could say, oh, these songs are unreleased, and I can just send them out, and I don't have to account for, publishing royalties or anything. It was really cool to be able to give that gift to people. That was my favorite thing I think we did.
Yeah. I think that's the thing I find so fascinating about the journey that you're in right now is music is a very personal, kind of almost intimate kind of thing. It's you and the people that love your music, and there's not a lot of clutter in between. I mean, the industry is out there, and we don't want to be talking negative about it. It does what it does, and I mean, I'm a part of it, so that's the reality. Yeah. But I'm loving talking to you, and there are lots of people out there that music it's so close to your heart, and even just as you're talking about going out and picking out antiques and things like that, it's your personal touch, right? And I think that we live in a generation where people are hungry for that, hungry for something real and authentic. Yeah. And you are giving that, and so anyways, I'm celebrating that in you today. I just love it.
Thanks.
I wanted to move on then to the album, and so the first thing I have an image of that picture that you have on your album. So you're not only a music artist, but obviously you love art. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why this image captured you, what you love about the artist or the image, what does it represent?
Yeah. Well, the designer that we hired for this record cover, his name is Benjamin Lee, and he's an art student in Pasadena, California. And we had worked with, my husband had worked with him on one other project, and he didn't even have a portfolio up online yet or anything because he hadn't started his company. He's a student, and he's young in this, and he's very, very gifted. And one of the things that I really believe in doing is when you're not gifted at something yourself, or even if you are, but maybe not primarily, you should hire someone else who is to do what they do and let them put their spin on it. And when you hire a designer, I'm a firm believer that, maybe it's because I'm married to one, that it's a collaboration. It's not just your vision. If you're hiring a designer, you're hiring them for their eye and their instincts as well as their skills and abilities. And so then I just told him, I gave him a color palette that I envisioned for the whole album, just sort of as I had heard the songs and, envisioned what it would look like. And I told him that I wanted it to look in some way like an homage to stained glass, but not without being maybe very obviously that way. And so a few weeks went by, and he sent us this image, which he had hand composed and photographed from real, leaves and petals. And it was a crane, and as you can see, this image is a crane, and there's sort of dead petals and live petals and dead leaves and alive leaves. And so he kind of sent me this explanation of what it all meant. And to him, he had listened to the songs and sat there and worked this out. And I was sort of like, I don't want to see anything else. I mean, this is incredible. Like, this artist has really given something, lent his instincts and his creativity to this project, and I just felt like it was perfect. I didn't even hardly wanted to tweak it at all, And so I fell in love with it, and I just absolutely think it's beautiful, and I'm glad I hired someone else to do something like that. I would never know, what's the record cover.
What do you remember him saying about, like, what it meant to him? Was it did the alive and dead leaves mean things? What did the crane mean? What did it mean?
He juxtaposed a lot of the living and dead sort of petals because of the theme of the record, which is a fortunate fall, which is a kind of meditation on the sort of beauty and the darkness of the human, condition. And so he really took from that some inspiration with the sort of different types of leaves and petals on the picture. And then the crane is an ancient Christian symbol for several things, one being Christ, and then also just sort of a symbol of vigilance. And I guess he just sort of started arranging things, and that sort of came out, and then in the same way that a musician would improvise, I think he sort of improvised that crane and then thought, what, I love this. And so, the green and the brown, I mean, all of that has to do with the theme of the record, and that sort of juxtaposition of beauty and of sadness that is the human fall. So he put a lot of thought into how he arranged all of that.
Amazing. Well, let's now look at the songs of the album. I put the list together, and I want to talk through some specific songs, but this morning as I was kind of listening to the album, I thought this isn't just a collection of independent songs. The whole thing is kind of a movement, and I did actually read that it's a movement in three sort of phases. So as we look at the songs, can you just help us to see the greater picture of where it starts and where it's moving to, and this theme of fortunate fall and oh happy fault and Felix culpa, if I'm pronouncing that right, but that all effectively is the same thing, just said different ways. So I'm assuming that's where the three sort of movements are. So kind of give us the bigger picture, looking at all the songs and how it's moving.
Yeah. Well, Fortunate Fall, as you said, is the title and the first track, and it is an alternate translation of Felix culpa, which is a Latin phrase that means "Oh happy fault" or "fortunate fall." So Fortunate Fall, number 1, "Oh happy fault," number 4, and Felix culpa, number 8, are all related in their theme. And you can even hear some of you guys might have already heard that number 4, "Oh happy fault," and number 8, Felix culpa, are the same theme musically, but one is minor and one is major. And in track 8 is instrumental, and so the other two have vocals, but track 8 is instrumental. So in between those tracks are the three movements of the record in my mind. The first movement being sort of a meditation on the humility of God in becoming man, and also the humility of the human condition, but the sort of poverty of humanity. And To Help My Unbelief sort of lays that out, and then Humble talks about Christ's humility in taking on that, our flesh and our, our life on this earth. And then the second movement is all sort of Psalm 23, Good Shepherd focused. Begins with "Oh happy fault," and it ends with "Good to me." And it's kind of it explores different aspects of the shepherd's theme, and it kind of goes different places. But a lot of the songs share, this idea of that God is good, and that his goodness is what sustains us on this earth and on our journeys. And then with Felix Culpa, number 8, introduces the Holy Spirit section of the record. And that focuses on sort of the Holy Spirit as a light and a leader and the revelator of God. And so it's the 3 themes are not like Trinitarian in nature necessarily at all, I think, but they all tie together in some way. So maybe one day I'll do a record on the Trinity, but this wasn't it. That's okay.
So and I understand that there's some theological influences, say from St. Augustine. I was reading a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about some of that theological, background influence, and maybe a little, because it's not a hidden fact. You had converted to Catholicism back in 2007 or 2008, and that reflects some of the journey that you've been on, and your, kind of coming alongside, and Matt Maher, who's also been on that similar kind of theological journey. So I want to kind of allow for some of those themes that make you, unique in your setting and what's predominantly, as you have even said, a kind of a Protestant powered kind of music industry. And so give us a little insight into how that background plays into this.
Yeah. Well, I like to say about Fortunate Fall that it reflects the 2 largest sort of sections of my spirituality, one being Catholic and the other being charismatic, which the 2 are not actually mutually exclusive, but a lot of people think they are. But I feel like this record reflects those things very clearly and in a way that my previous work has not really done necessarily as clearly. And I wanted to make a record for the church to sing with or to pray with, silently, however they would like. But I wanted it to be a mix of meditations and songs for church, And so in that, I really tried to draw from my background, not only as a Catholic now, the last, 6 or 7 years, but as a former evangelical Protestant, and the things, the gifts that came from that for me. And one of those gifts from my background of growing up was that I was raised in a tradition in Protestant church where we sang from an old Anglican hymnal, and we didn't have any instruments, and there was a lot of harmonies and hymn-like, hymnal tradition. I mean, very, very strong hymnal tradition in my background, and so that does come through on this record as well. And so, I really tried to, draw from all of that to make this project so that it wouldn't just be for Catholics or for, there's, I wanted to make something that could minister to people of different spiritualities within Christianity or outside of it. But it's, sort of a mix, I think, of the different influences that I've grown up with and the ones that I have now as a Catholic Christian in America.
Right. Beautiful. I'm just wondering, I want you to tell me, as a Catholic, what's the most important thing as you think about yourself as a Catholic? What's the most important thing to yourself in being like that? Like, why that? What is it that's, I'm trying to find the words to say this. What is it that's most personal, most meaningful, and important to you in where you are right now in your journey as a Christian?
Thanks for asking. I would say, without a doubt, if I had to pick one thing, it would be the Eucharist or communion, Holy Communion, and the sort of Catholic understanding of that. I feel very unified to Christ and to His church every time I'm able to receive the Eucharist at a Mass, partially because I know that Mass is a liturgy that's been being said in almost exactly the same way for thousands of years. There's a real unity to the church over history that I can very practically sort of feel. But bigger than that, and more importantly than that, I think I have never been so aware of him as I have been since I sort of came to space in this idea that he is mystically present in the elements. And that's a big deal to me. So I'd say that's probably the big thing. That's what I would die for. That's what I would stake my life on. And if I had to be martyred, I would be martyred for that, you know. So that's going to be it for me, for sure.
Thank you for that. I mean, that's really encouraging to hear, because I know that you are, you know, you're filled with the Holy Spirit. You believe in Christ and his death and resurrection. All the essentials are there in you, and you're a sister in Christ, and you know, and I'm encouraged to hear just you declaring your, you know, your faith that you stand on, the things that, I mean, I wasn't expecting you to say something you would die for, but truly that should be what it is. It's something you believe very passionately. So, well, let's move kind of through the sequence of songs now, and we'll talk about all of them just a little bit, but some of them we'll park a little bit more on in the lyrics and explore them and that. So it starts with Fortunate Fall, which if you listen to, the lyric is quite simple. It just goes over and over and over as Audrey kind of adds additional layers, vocal and instrumental. Oh happy fall, fortunate fall, that gained for us so great a Redeemer. So this is the theme, obviously, of the whole album, that was inspired by those words from St. Augustine. So I know we've talked about this a little bit, but just you know, give us that sense of what is this song in particular saying, again, that covers the whole theme of the album.
Yeah, I mean, it comes from, as you said, an Augustinian reference. In the Catholic tradition, we have Easter Vigil Mass every basically the eve of Easter, and that's where they usually bring new converts into the church and baptize people. And so I was baptized at an Easter Vigil Mass as well in 2007. But there's a prayer within the Easter Vigil Mass that's called the Exsultet, and it is basically an account of Old Testament history and the line of Jesus all the way to Jesus himself, and it's sung by a deacon at the Mass, and there's a phrase in it that says, "Oh happy fault, oh necessary sin of Adam, that gained for us so great and glorious a Redeemer." And the more that I've kind of spent time with that, which comes from an Augustinian quote, that something that he had written about that, they kind of drew from that for that prayer. The more I've spent thinking on that, I have been troubled by it, and I marvel at it. It's kind of a very strange idea, this sort of paradox of something like the fall of man being fortunate in some way, precisely because it gained for us the sweet, like, relationship with Christ that we have, that's very specific and very intimate. And in a way, you know, we don't know what would have happened if the fall had never happened, but we can only go by what we know and what we see, and that there's goodness that God desires to bring out of evil, and that he is in that business. And so, you know, that we can sort of marvel at the beauty of that. So that's what this song sets up, and it's the theme that drives through the whole record. Right.
So as I'm listening to the lyrics of the songs that unfold after this, I get a sense that this is not just theological, it's also very personal for you as you're thinking about your own life and journey, and you've encountered suffering and trials and tears and hardships, and through that have like, I got this sense, I don't know what the lyric of the song was, but that it's in those that you've discovered, you know, I can meet Christ here. So I mean, I'm not asking you to reveal anything that, you know, is too personal, because we're in a public space here, but I do want you to put that kind of personal, you know, I don't know, flavor to this, that this isn't just theology, it's Audrey's
I mean,
life.
It's absolutely. And one of the challenges of making a church music record for me was how to do both of those things, how to be theologically conscientious, but also sort of make it something I offered from my own heart, with my own story knit into it, because that's what makes it, I think, feel human, you know. To help my unbelief, which we're looking at right now, for me rings very true and hits close to home, because I tell people this a lot, but I may have told you this at the table when we were talking in San Francisco, but I struggle, I guess, to believe the simple things about God's, even his existence somehow. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I hear, in my head, this sort of voice of like, all this Christian stuff is just crazy. I can't believe that you believe this. It's complicated. It's like, it's totally out there. I mean, I don't know. I sort of struggle with that voice of disbelief and of unbelief. And it's something that I've come to embrace, I guess, as just being part of being a human being and having a finite mind. And I have a value. I have a place of value on reason and on, intellect. But so this song for me is sort of a really personal prayer. And it has that juxtaposition of, I know and I believe you are the Lord, help my unbelief, you know. And I also referenced a little bit doubting Thomas in the last verse, you know, to touch your wounded side and know the joy of my reward. I know and I believe, help my unbelief. These are words that I need to pray because of my sort of struggles, you know, with doubt. And so it's a very personal song in that sense.
And was it Peter? Peter was the one that said, I believe, help my unbelief. Yeah. It was. So I'm thinking, if it's Peter and if it's Thomas, probably all of the disciples were at one point struggling with that, and they hung out with Jesus. So how much more can we just, you know, like you're saying, embrace the fact. Let's just, you know, the reality is we struggle with it, and at the same time we can ask the Lord to help us in it, instead of declaring, oh, I'm a great, strong, I got it all together. I mean, we don't need that anymore in our life.
I mean, I think it's better to acknowledge it and sort of let it be what it is and let it breathe, because I think that if anybody has, and this song addresses this, if anybody has compassion for the human condition, it's Jesus, because he was human, you know, 100% human and 100% God. And so that should be enough for us to feel the level of trust and intimacy with him that we can be honest about even that, about even saying, I don't really know if I think you're God today or for the last 3 weeks or the last 3 years of my life or whatever it might be, you know, and for us to be able to say that to him and to believe that maybe he has the strength to help us believe, you know, I think that's a beautiful relationship. I don't really think hiding that from him makes it any more sweet or beautiful, you know.
Right. So then the next song is Humble, which you've talked about before, and this is kind of moving through that first sort of sequence of songs. So tell us a little bit about this song then. Yeah.
This one is I'm proud of this because, it's one of the more straightforward songs on the record in terms of stylistically, but I love these lyrics so much. And I took that second line, if you see fashioned of flesh and fire of life, I took that directly out of Jesu Joy of Man's Desiring, if you've ever heard that old classic. I think it was a Bach tune, and I forget who wrote the words.
Yes.
But there's a couple of verses to it, and it's got just incredible meat to that sort of those lyrics. And so I took that out of there and just like sort of talking about God in skin and how humble that is, that he not only was willing, but that he was glad. And, he wasn't, like, there's that verse that says, that Christ did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but instead humbled himself and took up a cross. And so that, as I over and over saying, he's not too proud to wear our skin, to bear our sin. So he's just a humble God. And so as a result, though, we lift him up, we exalt him, we place him at the top. But, and it's amazing that he would put himself in that place where, we're the ones who are sort of lifting him up, and he's receiving that from us, and it makes him like it's like sweet to his nostrils, So I think it's kind of just incredible that he was willing to sort of be with us. And that's what the song is about.
Yeah. It's a great picture. So moving through then the second sequence, a number of these songs, I didn't have the lyrics here, but this is kind of what you had said, the Psalm 23 sort of theme. And then I do have Good to Me, which I want to say, Audrey, and to anybody that's listening, for me, this is one song I was just like, I can totally see congregations singing this song and just, learning it after like the first verse. That's good. I got it. I'm ready to, to put my hands in the air and just sort of live in that. So it's a great, hopeful, light-filled, this is you as I see it anyway, is that, that simple, clear, congregationally friendly, but good message kind of song. So is there some more that you want to tell us about that song?
Yeah, I think this is a song, again, that although it's not personal like a journal entry, it is personal in that it comes out of really going through some things in the last few years that have required me to believe these things, that God is good, and that the foxes in the vineyard won't steal my joy. And that's a Song of Solomon reference that I've pulled, and I those are things that are born for me of real trial, but I hope that they are broad enough that other people can bring their experiences to the lyrics, and pray them in their own context of their own life. But yeah, I love this song, and every night when we play it, it's really incredible. I'm just like floored, when you hear people sort of raising not only their voices, but clearly their own hearts sort of join with you. It's just, I can't describe that. And I've really never felt that before, because I haven't written a lot of worship songs, and the ones I have written have usually been for other artists. And so I haven't experienced that feeling of that sort of unity you find, and when people kind of get it and they sing along and they bring their own heart to it, really, really special. I just am amazed about every single night on the tour.
I can only imagine how awesome that must be. And I think that the power of singing those words, when you are singing, you are good to me, but it's out of the context, even as it is in the place on this album. It's in the context of knowing that, no, life is not all perfect, and, my bank account is thin, and, and I have some relationships I'm struggling through, and, whatever it is, but that's the context you can bring this song into, and you offer this song for us in that context. And, that's that fortunate fall theme that the Redeemer is brought, because of the fall, and we can celebrate him. So it's great.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm hardly realizing how fast time is going, and I have all these reports from people listening, and I want to get to that. So we're going to kind of move through the next set in about 3 minutes or so, and then because I want to keep this personal and interactive. I won't bring other people onto the call, but I have their questions. So why don't you just kind of walk us through in one swoop the last movement, starting with Felix Culpa, which now we know is the Latin of the same theme, and then the last Holy Spirit-filled, movement of this album. So go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It has, like you said, Felix Culpa starts it off. It's an instrumental track, and it's the major version of track 4, melodically. And then, so I think that ushers in sort of a feeling of very peaceful, kind of like a resolution. Spirit of the Living God is an old hymn text that I found, and that's track 9. And I think you had the lyrics pulled up there, and it's I wrote a new tune to it, and it's just an old proclamation of the need for the Spirit in the church to make it one, close to Him and to itself. Then we have Lead Kindly Light, which I took that text and rearranged it a little bit from Cardinal Newman, and it's a hymn text that he wrote about, the path of being a human being and following the Holy Spirit and how dark that can feel. I wrote a new tune to that as well, and that was track 10, Lead Kindly Light. And then You Speak is perhaps one of my favorites, and it's some more congregational tune that is about the silence of the heart and how God's voice is most obvious, when we are silent. And that's a great place to end the record, I think. And it's where I like to end. Any praise and worship or prayer session or whatever it is should end, I think, in contemplation of God. And so, we sing in order to begin to hear Him and to see Him. So that's where I wanted to end the project.
So silence is a real important theme in your own worship life. Is that right? Why don't you just explore that just a little bit more with us? Because I know that's very important to you, that it's not all just noise and clapping and, the big band kind of thing. So how important is silence in our worship, and how do you actually express that when you're going out in these worship nights that you are? Is that brought into these evenings? How does that go?
Yeah, well, I, in the silence of the heart, God speaks is a Mother Teresa quote. And I drew from that to write this last song, knowing that one of the biggest obstacles to prayer being in any way fruitful for me is the noise in my head and sort of the self-imposed chaos of my own mind, because things are it's hard to hear the voice of God today, or I think it always has been, but it's the faster life gets and the more information we're intaking and, technology we're using. There is, for me, a chaos to that I cannot seem to really discern where God is leading me sometimes unless I really take the time to cultivate a discipline of silence. And it can mean total physical silence, but the silence of the heart is really the heart is the point. And so when I'm leading worship, I really try to find time beforehand to cultivate that silence for myself so that I can be tuned in to God's voice as I'm leading. And then in the actual worship sets, I'm not afraid of the quiet. And sometimes I've just played a show on Friday where we spent several minutes at the end just totally silent, and listening, each of us in our hearts to what God is saying. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I'm not afraid of that. And I think our culture is afraid of it, but I've learned not to be. Catholicism has influenced me greatly in that as well, because they're very big fans, I think, of that sort of silent, reverent sort of adoration and contemplation of God. And it's something you have to cultivate because it doesn't come naturally anymore in our lives, in our lives. So I really believe in that.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to move on to some questions here, and hopefully I can cover most of these questions. You can just take, whatever time you need and answer. They're going to come out randomly, but they've been kind of, edited, just so you know. No one's going to ask anything inappropriate. So Paul says, do you plan to continue working independently? I would be glad to support you again. So that's encouraging.
It is very encouraging. Thank you, Paul. At this point, yes, I do plan that. I don't really think I can't think of a reason why I would need at this point to sign a record deal for at least this portion of what I do. I feel very confident that, like you said earlier, I have a base of people who really believe in what I'm doing, and I'm happy to keep making it this way with them, for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Okay, Darlene says, with your songwriting, do you generally start with the lyrics or does the music come first?
Mm-hmm. It is really, truly, and I don't say this like flippantly. It is different for me from time to time. I think I tend to have a flash of an idea, whether that is lyrical or melodical, and sometimes it's both. And then I kind of hash it all out at the same time, I think. And the lyrics might come faster or slower than the melody, but I definitely tend to work on a song all at once. And sometimes, like I said, the lyrics come more quickly, and sometimes they don't. But I don't typically start all with one or all with the other. That's not really how I work.
Right. Marian says, your piano skills are amazing. What is your musical training?
Well, I started playing piano when I was 2 years old. My mom bought a piano. I climbed up on the bench and started playing something that she recognized. And she thought, okay, like, this girl is going to be a piano player. So I've always played. I played for 6 years like that, with by ear, just learning music and learning songs that I knew from church or whatever. And then at 8 years old, my mom put me in lessons, so I learned to read music. And I did that for about 9 years. I took classical lessons, so from 8 till around 16 or 17. And that's the extent of it, basically. But I play by ear, but I have at least some background in classical music.
Yeah. I have the same kind of journey. I did about 10 years of classical, but then I just so wanted to play by ear and from my heart, and it was a bit of a transition to, but I'm so glad to be able to now be able to read music and just sit down with no music and, play through progressions and put my own personality, and that really comes through. What I like about your piano playing, because I'm a piano player too, and I love the purity and simplicity. Like, let's just say you're not one of those classic Pentecostal piano players, and no offense to anyone who is, but I say that, in tongue-in-cheek, that the beauty of playing piano sometimes is knowing what not to play, and sometimes, a two-note chord can be the most beautiful thing, and that kind of purity comes through in your playing. It's very, selective in the notes that you play, and like there's space, So I like that. There's white space.
That.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So Julie asks, just before that, I'm going to go. Johanna says, your song "Show Me" means so much to me. You spoke what my heart was feeling when I was at a loss for words. What is the story behind that song? Is that a song?
Well,
sorry, is that a song from another album? I think that probably is.
It is. It's from the first record. Yeah, it's from the first record that I did with Sparrow Records. It's the last track. It's a piano vocal live song that I did, and I can't really share the specifics. It's a very private sort of moment in my life, but I will just say this. I was having my heart broken by something, and I was trying to learn to not rush out of that time. That I began to see a pattern in my life that when things go wrong or when something breaks our heart, whatever that might be, usually it's a relationship with someone in some way, that is a very valuable time, and it shouldn't be sped through or swept under the rug, but rather that learning how to die to our own desires is the most integral sort of beautiful thing as a Christian that we can do if we want to truly experience life with Christ, because he did that, died to his own will, died for humanity, and even though he was afraid of what lay before him, the joy set before him was worth it. And I think we have to learn to live that way if we want to truly live life in unity with him. And so I wrote a song trying to explore that, because I knew that I needed to believe that, and I needed to learn that so that I could not waste the suffering in my life. I wanted to really use it to unite myself to Christ on the cross. And that was a song where I was sort of exploring and learning that lesson. So that's kind of where that song came from for me.
Tanya asks, how do you care for and protect your own personal, physical, and emotional needs in your time with Jesus in the midst of music ministry?
Good question. I'm not sure. This is a balance I'm always seeking, and I know that one example for me is I've all but abandoned the practice of signing lines and signing autographs after, and that has actually upset several people, at the end of things. And one of the reasons I've done that is I find it, sort of for me and my personality, so like speaking of emotional health, small repetitive interactions over time become not like wearying as though I don't like people or love people, because I do, but sort of, I don't know, I just really struggle with that kind of amount of people, an amount of conversations. It's overwhelming sometimes, and so I've chosen to be a little more of a hermit in the last year or so, and I found that preserves my sort of joy in what I do a little bit. And I think there are time and place for interaction and sort of ministry, like one-on-one, person-to-person, absolutely, and I would never want to abandon that. But I've really tried to re-examine, like, why do I go out and sign autographs? What is the purpose of an autograph? Is that something that I should really feel like I should give, because what does that really do for someone or for me? Is that really ministry, And I'm kind of asking those questions again now as I get older, and that's just one example. But that's something that I've been thinking about, like how do I really strike a good balance between ministering to people and also, protecting that emotional health that would permit me to do this for many more years. And as far as prayer goes, I really find, for me, one practical thing is that I have an app, actually. Now, it's amazing, speaking of technology and chaos, but this is actually helpful to me. I have an app called, make sure I have this name right, Divine Office. Is an app that basically lays out every day the readings that the church is going through all day long and different prayers that go with them. And so when I'm busy and I can't seem to find the sort of mental energy to just pray off the cuff, because sometimes I do, and sometimes I will forget to do that, And the Divine Office, it's like, well, at noon you can say these prayers, and they're midday prayers, and they're appropriate to the time of day, and there's evening prayer, and there's night prayer, and you can kind of be guided when your heart is not necessarily where it should be. And I find that practically very helpful. And on days when I'm traveling, I'm very busy, and just keeping my mind and my heart somewhere where they should be. And I just have to schedule it, So that was all very disconnected. But those are things that I do to try and keep that balance there.
I'm really fascinated by, how you're talking about, because I don't see you as a hermit, and certainly in any way, and you're certainly very personable and willing to engage in deep conversation, and not just from this time we have together, but I'm just thinking my own experience with you a couple of months ago, just sitting at a dinner table at the banquet we were at, and obviously you want to engage and share your story and get to know people, and I can see that
definitely.
A balance. You can't get to know 10,000 people in personally. It's just not real. And yet, I guess on the other side is while you might not know them, they somehow feel like you're reaching into a very intimate, personal place in their life, and so they're trying to kind of grapple with Well, it's like, I want to know this person.
Yeah, and I was thinking that's like that's a really real thing. I mean, there's lots of musicians that I have felt have sang some things that I didn't know how to say, and that's a unique relationship to have with an artist. And And it is real. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a personal relationship, but it is a relationship, and it's a mystical thing, to have with someone. And I totally understand that. And I think one of the things, one of the reasons that I've thought about autographs in the last year is like, how does that actually make that any more real or enfleshed? I don't know that it does. It kind of actually, it is sort of encourages a sort of celebrity, you know what I'm saying? Like celebrity culture, I guess. And I don't want to do that if that's not helpful to me or to other people. So that's kind of something that, and it's not that I'm saying I'm going to refuse to sign anything for someone ever again. That's not it at all. I just mean sort of developing that culture at my shows where I come out and I sit on at a chair and a line goes by and I sign everybody's merchandise. It just doesn't feel human and personable to me at all. So it's something I'm seeking to improve how I approach that stuff, So.
Well, and you were saying that part of the reason is you're trying to protect your own soul. That was the question that was asked that prompted this. Is how do you protect your own soul?
Mm-hmm.
And this is you. I mean, we're not going to say no artist should ever do this, and maybe someone else, that's okay, that's for them. But you're saying, for you, you're trying to look at a long-term view of being able to get up in front of people and minister to them in a very personal place, and you need to retain a sense of kind of spiritual dignity that, and I understand that. I think it makes sense, and I hope that anyone who is either listening now or will listen to this in the future there's no question that you have something to say. You want to know people. You're relational and, and thoughtful, spiritual and charismatic, all of that. And some of this too is that there's many Protestants listening to this, and, we're not trying to make you charismatic any more than we're trying to make Audrey Protestant or whatever, right? It's not about trying to make people into something that we are. I'm just encouraged, just listening to you as you are. So the last question, and this is just more practical, but someone was downloading your album from iTunes and they were missing the liner, that kind of, when you get the CD, you get to open that little booklet and all that. Is that available digitally? Someone is asking, so let's just, is it in iTunes or maybe it should be there?
It's not in iTunes. They have some interesting rules about that now that are new, that because of publishing, they don't like to include them. And so we would love for them to be on iTunes, but they're not there. We don't have them available digitally at this time, but it is something that we're looking into because I know that a lot of people really love to have, the lyrics and the artwork. And so just whoever asked that question, stay tuned to my Facebook or Twitter, and if or when we are able to make that available online for you somewhere, I will be making sure I announce that. Because I would love for it to be out there, especially if someone's willing to pay the money to buy the album, and it's the same price on iTunes as it is, on Amazon. So I would love for you to have that. I'll do my best to find a solution for that problem for sure.
Awesome. Hey, well, we've come to the end of our hour, and I just want to thank you for opening up your heart to all of us. I'd like to close in prayer. If you feel comfortable, Audrey, would you mind praying for those of us who are listening just in your own personal way that, there's lots of worship musicians and pastors and leaders and all of that who I'm sure are being very ministered to by your stories. So let's kind of close out in that way. I'll just kind of give you the microphone to take it on and take us to the Lord. Yeah.
Dear Lord, I do pray in thanksgiving for your goodness to each one of us and to your church as a body. Thank you for your humility and your intense love for each person in this world and particularly on this call. And I pray, Lord, that each of us would be given the grace to hear your voice and to discern your will for us, and that we would be, as worship leaders and pastors, that we would be refreshed in our affection for you and in our love for you and in our awareness of your love and affection for us, so that we may in turn pour that out onto the people that come across our path. And Lord, I pray a special blessing for everyone who's called in and listening in on the internet, and that you would bless them today with special graces, Lord, like I said, of just awareness of your affection and a renewal in their affection and love for you, God. I pray that for each one of us. Thank you for this chance to come together and talk about these things, and bless Praise Church, God, and thank you for their willingness to have today. And we trust you, and we trust your goodness and believe in you, and thank you for leading us, Lord. Help us, help our unbelief, and we ask all these things in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Audrey. So I'm sure many people have been listening and are very grateful for this time, and I want to encourage you to continue in your support of Audrey and her ministry. It's a real step out of faith season for her, and she is really leaning into the support of people who love her music. So get her album, go to iTunes, get her charts, bring some of her music into your church if you find that it's appropriate and timely and has the right message and words and all of that. There's lots of great songs, especially in this last album, Fortunate Fall, and now, as you've been listening, you get a sense of the story and the movement and the heart and theology and all of that behind it. It just kind of opens it all up. So I hope those of you who are listening are encouraged. We also have all of Audrey's songs from Fortunate Fall streaming for free in a listening party, so you can go to praisecharts.com/Fortunate Fall. I think that's where it is, and find that, and even maybe share some of the songs and your reflections on them in Facebook or Twitter or things like that. Just part of the spreading the word around. So we want to help you, support you in your ministry, and look forward to continuing the journey with you, Audrey. So thanks and blessings to you. And let's just do a little shout out to your husband, who was also sitting at that banquet table 3 months ago, and he's a solid support for you, kind of a silent support as far as the, he's not in the public sphere, but, you've married a great man, and he is, strong support behind you. So what's his name again? William. William Price. Yeah. That's right, William. So thank you, William, for your support of this woman. Okay, I'll let you go, Audrey. Have a wonderful day in Nashville. I hope you can survive that muggy heat, and we'll be in touch, all right? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Ryan.
Bye.
Take care.
You're welcome. Bye.